latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
If that's moving up, then I'm moving out.
Good Tuesday morning. Amy Jacobson here. That song can only mean that our good friend Ted Dabrowski is joining us, president at Wirepoints Inc. Good morning, Ted. How are you? Hello, Ted. Are you there, Ted? Ted? Chris, are you there?
Paging Ted.
Ted.
Paging
You guys hear me?
Ted.
Oh, yes. Hi, Ted. How are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm great. How are you guys doing? Hey, Chris.
Great.
We're doing great. So I guess apparently we have a new contract with the CTU. What do we get out of that, Ted?
You know, what do you get out of it? A bigger property tax bill for one. A more emboldened Chicago teachers union for two, and a bunch of kids that can't read for three. You get all that in one shot.
Well, Brandon Johnson said he wasn't going to raise our property taxes. Remember? That was one of his campaign promises.
No, that's when he realized that nobody else wanted to do all the other 30 tax hikes he wanted to do. So when he got rejected on all of them, we saw the Chicago population reject his real estate transfer tax, and he's been left with only one thing. That's just the automatic property tax hikes, and that's what people are really, really hurting on, and they're going to get more of it because of this new contract.
Oh, God. I mean, it just makes me sick, too, because they're hemorrhaging enrollment. I mean, in my neighborhood alone, I never thought in my life that they would put up signs saying, come to such and such school. But during COVID, they lost, and I should just say the school, but my kids went there, and I loved working there, too. But it was Blaine, and they lost so many kids at COVID, people that moved out of the state. And I knew personally close to 30 kids where their parents got up and left and moved to Michigan, moved to Utah, moved to Colorado, moved to places that were freer than Illinois.
Yeah, you know who's really left, by the way, is the black population. There's 110,000 fewer blacks now at CPS than there were in around 2000. It's been a huge. They said I'm out of here, and that's in theory the school district and Brandon Johnson and those guys are protecting the blacks, but it's the blacks who are leaving because the combined crime, these empty failing schools, and they certainly don't teach kids how to read anymore. I think they're going to different pastures, whether it's Atlanta or Houston or somewhere like that, which have been more prosperous for blacks.
Ted, it's a civil rights issue, isn't it? I mean, you're locked into a school. They take away the charter schools, they take away the private schools, and you're sent into and forced to be in a failing school with horrific results.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, and what's fascinating about all that is that as Pritzker and Johnson lock down or really, really avoid vouchers or scholarships for kids, especially these poor minorities. You're seeing states around us, just everybody's doing school choice. Everybody's doing education savings accounts. Texas is about to become the biggest on day one school choice provider. We got Iowa next door, Indiana. It's everywhere except for here. I mean, we're like the ugly duckling right in the middle of all these states with school choice.
And it's crazy, too. I mean, the taxpayer scholarship program, how could you get rid of that? And I know that they did, but is there any hope of ever getting it back, or do we have to wait for a regime change?
I think we have to wait for a regime change. We have to wait for a big marketing campaign. I think right now the unions have gained more power. People like them less, but legislatively, I think they've got more power. The Democratic supermajorities are not going to go against the unions, but I do hold optimism for school choice in Illinois because the more that we can persuade the Black Caucus, the Latino Caucus, that it's their kids that are being destroyed in these schools, the more likely at some point that they'll vote to empower their people. Right now, their people have no power. But I think school choice is the way to give these families power to do something besides being stuck in these really, really bad schools.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, this article I have here, Dissecting Chicago's Agreement with the CTU, and as I review this, they're killing choice for school choice. They're killing it. We're paying more for it in this contract. They have less teaching time, less evaluations, soft scoring and assessments so we don't get results rating scores. And despite the dramatic drop, like you guys were talking about in the students, listen to this, the reviews. They used to be in the 80s and low 90s. Now they're all 99% for the reviews for the teachers. So the reviews are higher. There's no results to score. Less time with the teacher, killing choice, and then they kill the kids' tax credit. So is this common in big city districts where we pay for our education to be destroyed by them? Get them raises?
It happens in places like Baltimore and other failed cities that, with regard to their education. It's fascinating. I mean, you just nailed everything you said is spot on. We've been reporting on this at Wirepoints for a while. These, great evaluations. The schools are evaluated as great. You look at the results, and most kids can't read. Most kids can't do math. Many kids aren't even coming to school. Teachers don't come to school. I mean, you look at their absences. And we pay more and more. CPS is $30,000 a year across Illinois. It's about $25,000 a year, and we're paying more and more for it. And there's no revolt. It's funny that we are doing this to ourselves.
Yes.
As a population, we vote in the same people over and over again, and there's no penalty. There's no anything. So we're a bit psychotic in that sense.
So Ted, there's a narrative out there. We're switching topics among politicians and the media that Chicago's had a recent drop in homicides. And do you want to expose the truth there on Wirepoints?
Well, there has been a drop in homicides, since 2021, right at the peak. You guys remember that? I mean, in the middle of George Floyd and COVID and all that. We had over 800 murders in Chicago, and it wasn't just Chicago; it was everywhere.
I thought people were supposed to be locked down and in their houses and staying 6 feet apart from each other.
Not when you're rioting for St. George Floyd. Blessed be his name.
Yes. So since then, of course, things have calmed down, right? We've moved away from George Floyd and COVID. So murders are down. And you look at places like Philadelphia and Baltimore, they're down dramatically. Well, we looked at last year alone, Chicago had an 8% drop in homicides, which, everything else equal is good. But, Philly was down 48%. Wow. Other cities were down 30%. And so we're still the nation's, biggest murder capital in the country. And for the 20 largest cities, even with those drops, we still have the highest rate. So people want to celebrate that things are better here, but we're the outlier again. Just like talking about CPS, we're the outlier in the country for murders. And celebrate all you want that we have fewer murders, and that's good if you have 60 or 70 fewer people murdered. But the fact is that when you look at the city with the most murders in the country, it's Chicago. When you look at the 20 largest cities in the country and look at the murder rate, it's 5 times higher than New York's, 3 times higher than LA's. We're horrible at it, and we shouldn't celebrate anything until we get those murder rates competing with the LA's or the New York cities. That's when we should celebrate, when we dramatically bring them down.
You know what I keep hearing from in my travels? I keep hearing from people, no matter where, if you're in Iowa, Utah, Missouri, when is your mayor going to get recalled? Why is he still in power? What were you people thinking? Because he's not equipped in a business sense to be running the 3rd largest city in the country, but he's also arrogant, and he's a little bit naive and a little bit stupid, and that's a horrible combination.
Yeah, he's all of those, and I think everybody across the country now knows it. I think watching him when he went to D.C. recently,
oh gosh,
the reason he had to perform the way he did is very robotic, is because they said don't say anything, you can't speak like you normally do because you just can't. And so he was a robot and managed to avoid a lot of critique. But no, if there was a recall, we don't have a proper recall process here in Illinois.
Right.
If there was one, I think he would be. I think he would have been, or he would be now. But there is none. It's something to seriously consider to have that in Illinois, because we shouldn't be able to be stuck like this. And
all of my liberal neighbors voted for him. And they're like, see, elections have consequences.
How do you go from Larry Lightfoot to him? That it just stunned the crap out of me.
I know. Well, people thought that he was going to be. I mean, I don't know what they thought. He was in bed with the CTU. I mean, he's a former teacher. He's still on CPS. He's still on their payroll, but it's been suspended. While he's mayor. Honestly, I don't know what they were thinking, because I know that Stacey Davis Gates wanted to run, but her approval rating was at 1 to 3%, so she couldn't do it. So they found somebody who I think resembled Obama a little bit, And I'll never forget when I saw him speak. I saw all the candidates speak at some comedy club, and it was a sit down. It was a very relaxed atmosphere. And as soon as he started speaking, my heart sank, and I thought, and I knew right then and there, I'm like, oh, he's going to win. I knew it.
Well, what's fascinating is, okay, we kicked out Lori Lightfoot. We thought that was great, and instead we got, Brandon Johnson,
who doesn't pay his water bills.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. So now the question is, okay, so we all know, he's got a 7% approval rating. So I would assume that he can't make it back in. The question is going to be what happens next. And we have to be careful to not move to the point of like, well, just anything is better than Brandon Johnson, because that would be true. But that, Chicago needs dramatic reforms, and it needs to be flipped upside down in virtually everything it does. And if we don't get that kind of champion, then Chicago will just kind of continue on this downward slide, or does something crazier happen where we get another a bad crazy leader? What the hell is going to happen in Chicago? We got to really start fighting to defend what's happening there before we lose more people, more companies, and we lose control and get into out of control slide.
All right, Ted Dabrowski, we're going to have to leave it there for today. Ted Dabrowski, you could follow he's president at Wirepoints.inc, and you can also follow him, I'm sorry, words are hard, on Twitter or X, but yes, we like to keep calling it Twitter, ILPOLISKI. Ted, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile. Gain insight into building strong marriages and